My name is Elena Rivers, and I still remember the exact moment my world fractured. I was 24, freshly married, dreaming of a life filled with laughter, soft evenings, and the sound of little feet running through our apartment in Portland. When my son Logan was born, I should have felt overwhelming joy, but the doctors whispered words I wasn't ready to hear. Logan had a rare neurological condition. The phrase special needs hit me like a thunderbolt, but what hurt more was watching my husband, Gavin, turn away with cold eyes. He didn't speak, didn't even hug me. By the next week, he left, taking only his suitcases and a sliver of my heart. He abandoned us because he couldn't face what he deemed imperfection. Those first months were unbearable. I had to relearn everything alone. How to manage Logan's therapies, how to navigate appointments, how to answer strangers' intrusive questions without crumbling. I became both mother and father, nurse and teacher, protector and cheerleader. Every smile Logan gave me felt like a victory over the world, and every setback broke me into fragments I didn't know how to glue together. People whispered behind my back, some pitying, some judgmental, and some, I realized later, filled with jealousy at the resilience they couldn't understand. I remember nights where Logan slept fitfully and I sat beside him, holding his tiny hand, whispering promises I hoped he could feel. "I've got you, Logan. Always." Those whispered words became the mantra that held me together. I refused to let his condition define our lives. Slowly, painfully, I built a routine. I found a community of parents like me, advocates, and therapists who guided me. With every therapy session, every doctor's visit, I grew stronger, fiercer, and more determined that Logan's differences would never be his weakness. By the time he was 5, Logan was showing sparks of brilliance. He couldn't speak clearly, but his drawings were vivid, his imagination boundless. He learned to navigate the world in his own rhythm, and I celebrated each small triumph with tears and laughter intertwined. Meanwhile, I had returned to school, finishing my degree in social work, determined to help other families who were navigating the same storm. My life was no longer defined by Gavin's absence but by our victories, small and monumental alike. I never ran into Gavin again. I stopped looking, though deep down I wondered if he even thought of us. It was 16 years later, on a gray March morning, that fate, cruel, ironic, unavoidable, placed him back in my path. I was working the front desk at St. Augustine Hospital, managing admissions and coordinating appointments. Logan, now 18, was preparing for a series of specialized evaluations to support his next steps in college. I was focused on his forms, my hands steady as I filled out checklists and confirmed schedules. The hospital was busy, but that didn't matter. My entire focus was Logan, his independence, his future. Then I felt it. A presence behind me, a familiar, unsettling energy. I turned slowly, and there he was, Gavin. He hadn't changed much, still sharp features, still an air of superiority. His eyes scanned the room until they landed on me, and the moment our gaze met, he smirked. "Elena," he said mockingly, his voice dripping with the same disdain he'd shown years ago. "Where's your broken son? Is he even still alive?" I froze for a second, caught between disbelief and anger. The room seemed to fade around me as I heard the cruelty in his words. I wanted to respond, to strike back, to scream, but Logan's name alone reminded me of why I couldn't let him affect me. I straightened my spine, refusing to give him the satisfaction. That's when I noticed someone stepping beside me, the head doctor, Dr. Marcus Leland. He gave me a gentle smile, his tone calm but inquisitive. "Everything okay, Mom?" It was a simple question, but in that moment it felt like armor. The world hadn't collapsed, not today, not ever. Logan was alive, thriving, and independent. Gavin's judgment meant nothing compared to the life we had built together. I looked at Dr. Leland, nodded, and my lips curved into a quiet, unstoppable strength. I knew the confrontation wasn't over. I knew Gavin would linger in my mind for more than a fleeting moment. But in that instant, surrounded by the evidence of our years, the progress, the love, the victories, I realized that I didn't need his approval or his presence. Logan was alive. We were thriving. And I would protect him from every doubt, every sneer, every judgment that dared to cross our path. This was our life, and we were undefeated. Enjoying the story? Subscribe for more. Where are you listening from? Comment below. Dr. Leland stayed by my side, his presence steady, almost like a shield. I could feel Logan's calmness behind me as well. He sensed the tension and rested his hand lightly on mine. Gavin's smirk wavered, replaced by something that looked more like confusion. It was clear he had expected me to crumble, to show fear or weakness, but all he found was confidence forged from 18 years of struggle and triumph. "Mom," Logan whispered softly. "I'm okay." His voice, slightly unclear but filled with determination, made my chest swell. I leaned down and brushed a stray lock of hair from his forehead. "I know, baby. You've always been okay." That moment, the simple truth of his resilience, was more powerful than any words Gavin could ever utter. Gavin took a step closer, but I didn't flinch. You've done all this?" he asked, his tone uncertain. I tilted my head slightly, keeping my gaze on him. "Yes. Every step. Every challenge. Logan has grown into the incredible person he is because of love, patience, and persistence. Not because someone stayed when it was easy." My voice was calm, unwavering. Each word was measured but carried the weight of everything we had endured together. He opened his mouth again, likely to speak, but Dr. Leland gently interjected. "Gavin, this isn't the place for questions. Perhaps you should step back and let the patient focus on his appointments." The calm authority in his voice created an invisible boundary. Gavin's eyes flicked to Logan, who now looked back at him with quiet dignity. The boy who had been labeled broken by his father now radiated strength and independence. I realized something in that moment. Gavin's judgment, his cruelty, his absence, they had once felt like crushing weight, but they hadn't broken us. Logan had grown into a remarkable young man, and I had become someone I barely recognized in my former vulnerability. The years of sleepless nights, endless appointments, and relentless advocacy had shaped us into unshakable partners in life. The hospital's fluorescent lights hummed above us, and the murmurs of other visitors faded into background noise. I was fully present in this moment, and for the first time, I felt a sense of closure that didn't require confrontation or revenge. Logan's progress was living proof that love and dedication could overcome abandonment. Gavin's opinion no longer held any power over our reality. I leaned closer to Logan and whispered, "Ready to see the doctor?" He nodded, smiling shyly, and I reached for his hand. The warmth of his touch was a reminder of why we had endured every hardship. Together, we moved toward the examination room, leaving Gavin rooted to the spot, confronted by the undeniable truth of our lives. He had walked away years ago, and now he could only witness what he had abandoned. As we walked down the corridor, I felt a new sense of clarity. Life had tested us, pushed us to limits we never imagined, but Logan and I had emerged stronger, wiser, and more united than ever. Our victories weren't loud or public. They were intimate, real, and enduring. And for the first time, I realized that my strength wasn't defined by confrontation, but by the quiet, relentless perseverance that had carried us through every storm. Even as I glanced back once and caught Gavin staring, I didn't feel anger or bitterness. I felt something much greater, pride. Pride in Logan, pride in myself, pride in the life we had built from fragments of hardship and love. He might have mocked us, judged us, and abandoned us, but he could never take away the resilience that defined our every step forward. And so, with Logan by my side and our hearts aligned, we entered the room, ready for the next chapter of our journey. Gavin remained a shadow of the past, a reminder of what we had overcome, and nothing more. This was our life, forged from struggle, defined by love, and unstoppable in its quiet power. Enjoying the story? Subscribe for more. Where are you listening from? Comment below. The doctor greeted us warmly, and Logan immediately relaxed into the familiar environment. He moved confidently, explaining some of his preferences and needs with a clarity that amazed me. I watched him with a mixture of pride and awe, remembering the tiny, fragile infant who had once relied on me for every breath. Now he was articulating his needs, making decisions, and even advocating for himself in ways I never could have imagined. We spent the next hour going through Logan's evaluations, his progress evident in every test and interaction. I stayed beside him, offering gentle encouragement, while the staff responded to his questions with patience and respect. I realized, in that moment, that our years of effort had not been about proving anything to anyone else. They had been about giving Logan the tools to thrive independently, to navigate a world that often judged too quickly. As the appointment concluded, Logan and I walked back to the reception area. The corridor felt brighter somehow, as if the sunlight had followed us inside. I noticed Gavin still lingering in the distance, watching, but I refused to acknowledge him. Our life was not defined by his presence, and our happiness was not contingent on his approval. I leaned down to Logan and whispered, "You did amazing today." He smiled, shy but triumphant, and squeezed my hand. "Thanks, Mom," he said softly, his voice steady and clear. The simplicity of his words carried more weight than any grand proclamation. In them, I heard the echo of every late night, every therapy session, every challenge we had faced together. We moved toward the exit, and I felt a lightness I hadn't experienced in years. Logan's independence was growing, and so was mine. We had built a life resilient enough to withstand absence, judgment, and cruelty. We had created a world defined not by limitations but by love, persistence, and unwavering dedication. Outside the hospital, the air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of spring. Logan paused for a moment, looking up at the sky with that quiet, thoughtful expression he always wore when he was contemplating something deeply. "Mom," he said, "I think I'm ready for college next year." I blinked, caught off guard, and then felt an overwhelming surge of pride. "You're ready, Logan," I replied, my voice firm but gentle. "You've always been ready." We continued walking through the parking lot, our pace unhurried, our connection unbreakable. I noticed Gavin's car still parked at a distance, and for a brief moment, I thought about the years we had lost. But I quickly pushed the thought aside. The past had shaped us, yes, but it did not dictate our present or our future. Logan and I had reclaimed our narrative, and it was stronger than any shadow he could cast. By the time we reached the car, I realized how much we had grown. Logan was confident, capable, and independent. I was proud, not just of him but of myself, for enduring, for nurturing, for refusing to let anyone else define our worth. Every scar, every sleepless night, every struggle had culminated in this moment of quiet triumph. As we drove home, the city passing by in a blur, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. We were no longer reacting to the absence of others. We were moving forward, empowered by our own resilience. Logan chatted about his plans, his ideas, his hopes, and I listened, marveling at the young man he was becoming. That evening, as we arrived home, I paused to watch Logan carry his bag inside, humming softly to himself. I knew that life would continue to present challenges, but I also knew that together, we could face anything. Gavin's judgments were irrelevant. What mattered was our bond, our growth, and the life we had created. And in that quiet, unassuming moment, I understood something profound. Strength was not about proving others wrong. It was about building a life so full of love, resilience, and independence that no one could shake it. Logan and I had done just that, and nothing, not abandonment, not mockery, not doubt, could ever undo it. Enjoying the story? Subscribe for more. Where are you listening from? Comment below. That night, after dinner, Logan settled into his room to work on a personal project he had been developing for months. A series of digital art pieces that reflected his unique perspective on the world. I stood at the doorway, watching him, amazed at how he had transformed challenges into creativity. Every line he drew, every color he chose, was a reflection of his insight and determination. I walked over and sat on the edge of his bed. "I've been thinking," I said quietly, "about how far you've come. It's incredible." He glanced at me, a small smile forming. "I had help," he replied softly, and I knew he meant me. I nodded, brushing a hand over his shoulder. "Yes, but it was your perseverance that made it real." The room was filled with the quiet hum of the computer and the soft sound of his sketching. I realized that these ordinary moments, so simple and calm, were the truest victories. They weren't grand ceremonies or public accolades. They were moments of growth, creativity, and self-expression. These were the markers of a life truly well lived, and I felt a sense of fulfillment that no external recognition could ever match. The next morning, Logan and I headed to a local community center where he had enrolled in a workshop designed for young adults with unique abilities. I had insisted he participate because I knew it would help him gain social skills, confidence, and a network of friends who understood and celebrated him. Watching him engage with peers, articulate his ideas, and take initiative was breathtaking. He was no longer just surviving. He was thriving in a world that could have seemed unwelcoming years ago. As we drove home later, Logan talked about the people he had met, the conversations they had shared, and the ideas he wanted to explore further. His enthusiasm was infectious, and I couldn't help but smile. I thought about how far we had come, from those early days when every small task felt overwhelming, to this moment of expansive possibility. Life had reshaped us both, molding resilience, creativity, and independence into our daily rhythm. Back at home, I reflected on the years that had passed. I thought about the sleepless nights, the therapy sessions, the moments of doubt, and the small victories that had seemed insignificant at the time. Every challenge had contributed to the strength we now carried. I realized that the hardships had not been obstacles. They had been teachers, guiding us toward patience, understanding, and the ability to appreciate life's subtle triumphs. Evenings became our time for reflection and connection. Logan and I shared our thoughts about our goals, our ideas, and our experiences. It was in these conversations that I saw his growing independence and emotional intelligence. He was learning not just to navigate the world but to understand it, empathize with others, and express himself in meaningful ways. I felt a deep sense of pride, knowing that the foundation we had built was solid, lasting, and unshakable. One weekend, I decided to take Logan to a local exhibition for young artists. His excitement was palpable as he explored the different displays, analyzing techniques, and imagining how he could integrate what he saw into his own work. I watched him with quiet admiration, recognizing the extraordinary growth that had occurred over the years. Logan's creativity was not just an outlet. It was a testament to his resilience and the love and care that had nurtured him. Later, as we walked through the gallery, Logan stopped in front of a particularly intricate painting. "Mom," he said, "I want to do something like this someday." I knelt beside him, taking his hands in mine. "You will, Logan. And maybe even more beautifully, because your work will come from your heart, your experiences, and your unique perspective." He nodded, determination shining in his eyes, and I knew he believed me. That night, after returning home, I reflected on how far we had come since the days when Gavin's absence felt like an insurmountable loss. We had transformed adversity into strength, challenges into growth, and struggles into resilience. Logan was not just surviving the world. He was preparing to leave a mark, to create, and to inspire. And I was beside him, proud, fulfilled, and certain that nothing could ever diminish the life we had built together. Enjoying the story? Subscribe for more. Where are you listening from? Comment below. The following weeks moved steadily, filled with routine, therapy sessions, and small victories that stacked upon one another. Logan was preparing for his first independent exhibition of digital artwork at a local gallery, a milestone that felt monumental both for him and for me. Every preparation, every detail, had been a collaborative effort, Logan's creativity guiding the vision, and my steady encouragement supporting the execution. The morning of the exhibition arrived, and I watched Logan as he meticulously arranged his pieces. His focus was intense, his hands moving with confidence, and his eyes shining with anticipation. It struck me again how much he had grown, not just in skill, but in courage. This was a young man who had once struggled to express even basic needs, now presenting his work to the public, speaking about his vision, and engaging with visitors with poise. As guests began to arrive, I noticed a mixture of curiosity and admiration in their faces. Logan greeted each visitor, explaining his process, discussing the inspiration behind his pieces, and listening intently to their feedback. I could feel the pride swelling inside me, tempered by gratitude for every challenge we had faced that had led to this moment. Every hour of struggle, every setback, and every small triumph had shaped this reality. The gallery staff complimented his work, and several local collectors expressed genuine interest in purchasing pieces. Logan's confidence grew with every positive interaction, and I felt a surge of relief and joy that we had come so far from the days of uncertainty and doubt. His abilities were finally being seen and recognized, not as limitations but as strengths. During a quiet moment, Logan stepped aside and looked at me. "Mom, did you ever imagine this would happen?" he asked softly. I shook my head with a gentle smile. "Not exactly," I admitted. "I knew we would work hard, and I believed in you. But seeing it like this, watching you shine, I realized just how extraordinary you are." He smiled, a mixture of pride and humility, and returned to greet the next visitor. As the evening progressed, I reflected on how far we had come. It wasn't just Logan who had grown, I had transformed alongside him. The years of challenges, sleepless nights, and constant advocacy had not only shaped Logan into a strong, independent young man, they had molded me into a parent capable of unwavering support, patience, and resilience. I had learned that true strength comes not from avoiding hardship, but from meeting it with determination and love. Toward the end of the event, a local journalist approached us, asking questions about Logan's journey and the story behind his art. Logan responded thoughtfully, articulating his process and inspirations with clarity and depth. I stood beside him, quietly observing, knowing that every word he spoke was a testament to our shared perseverance. The journalist's interest wasn't in pity or sympathy, it was in genuine respect for a young man who had faced challenges and turned them into opportunity. Later, as the gallery began to empty, Logan and I walked home, our steps light, our hearts full. I thought about the years we had spent navigating obstacles, and I realized that what we had built was more than resilience. It was a life of purpose. Logan's art was more than expression. It was evidence that love, patience, and unwavering commitment could transform adversity into achievement. That night, at home, Logan settled in his room with renewed energy, sketching ideas for future projects. I lingered at the doorway, watching him, feeling a sense of fulfillment that went beyond pride. It was the quiet recognition that, despite every challenge, we had created a life that was meaningful, vibrant, and unshakable. In the days that followed, we continued to navigate both the ordinary and extraordinary moments together. Logan thrived in his community, engaged in meaningful projects, and deepened his connections with peers who respected and valued him. I supported him in every endeavor, offering guidance when needed, and stepping back to allow his independence to flourish. Our life was no longer defined by absence, judgment, or doubt. It was defined by growth, love, and achievement. I realized that the shadow of Gavin, though it had once seemed so powerful, was now inconsequential. The man who had abandoned us no longer held influence over our story. Our strength was our own, forged over years of perseverance and care. Logan's achievements, his resilience, and our shared experiences had created an unbreakable foundation. And as I watched Logan plan his next projects with quiet determination, I understood fully that our journey was ongoing. Challenges would continue to appear, but they would not define us. Together, we had built a life of purpose, joy, and strength, proof that even in the face of abandonment and doubt, love and dedication could create something extraordinary. Enjoying the story? Subscribe for more. Where are you listening from? Comment below. The following morning, the sun poured through the living room windows, casting a warm glow over the apartment. Logan was already at his desk, focused on sketching new ideas for a community art project he had been invited to lead. I carried a cup of coffee and sat on the couch, observing him with quiet admiration. His concentration, his patience, and his attention to detail reflected the years of growth we had experienced together. I thought about the early days, the appointments, the therapies, and the constant vigilance required to navigate a world that didn't always understand him. Every struggle had strengthened both of us, shaping a resilience that could not be measured by anyone else's standards. Logan was not simply surviving. He was thriving, and our lives had become a testament to perseverance, patience, and unwavering support. By mid-morning, Logan invited me to sit beside him and review a series of sketches he was considering for a local youth exhibition. I leaned in, noticing the progress and creativity that flowed from his hand. Each piece carried his unique perspective, a reflection of both his experiences and his imagination. I offered feedback gently, encouraging him to explore ideas fully while allowing his voice to remain central to the work. After our review session, we decided to go for a walk in the nearby park. The crisp air and the sound of birdsong provided a peaceful backdrop as we strolled along the winding paths. Logan spoke about his future plans, college, internships, and new art projects, with a clarity and confidence that filled me with pride. It was remarkable to witness the transformation from the fragile child of years ago to the thoughtful, capable young adult he had become. As we sat on a bench overlooking the small pond, I reflected on our journey. The obstacles we had faced had been numerous and often overwhelming, yet they had forged a bond between us that was unbreakable. Logan's growth, his accomplishments, and his confidence were living proof of what consistent love and dedication could achieve. Every challenge, once feared, had become an opportunity for learning and growth. I noticed a familiar figure walking past the park, a woman with a small child in tow, and I was reminded of the moments when Logan's peers had first started to recognize his abilities. The difference now was striking. He was no longer the child who struggled to be seen or heard. He was a young man whose talents commanded respect and admiration, whose determination inspired those around him, and whose resilience was undeniable. Returning home, Logan began preparing a digital portfolio of his artwork, organizing pieces to submit for an upcoming regional showcase. I watched him, amazed at the efficiency, creativity, and professionalism he displayed. These were qualities we had nurtured together, shaped by years of effort, guidance, and shared experiences. It was a reminder that growth is both gradual and cumulative, each small step building upon the last. That evening we shared a quiet dinner, discussing the events of the day. Logan spoke with excitement about his plans and the interactions he had at the park. I encouraged him, emphasizing the importance of persistence, curiosity, and compassion in everything he pursued. His responses, thoughtful and articulate, revealed not just his maturity, but also the depth of character that had developed through years of shared challenges. Later, as I prepared for bed, I paused to reflect on the trajectory of our lives. The hardships that once seemed insurmountable had shaped a future full of possibility, growth, and fulfillment. Logan had become a remarkable young man, and I had become a parent capable of guiding, supporting, and empowering him with patience, love, and unwavering commitment. And as I turned off the lights, I felt a profound sense of certainty. No challenge, no judgment, and no absence could undo what we had built. Logan and I were prepared for whatever came next, our bond strong, our purpose clear, and our resilience unshakable. Enjoying the story? Subscribe for more. Where are you listening from? Comment below. The next morning dawned bright and promising, the sun casting soft patterns through the blinds of Logan's room. He was already awake, sketching ideas for a new collaborative project he had been invited to join with other young artists in the city. I brewed coffee and quietly observed him, noting how focused and self-assured he had become. The confidence that radiated from him was no accident. It was the result of years of guidance, practice, and careful nurturing. We spent the morning reviewing his plans, discussing timelines, and refining concepts. Logan's ability to articulate his vision had grown tremendously. He could now explain not only the what of his art but also the why behind every decision. His depth of understanding, combined with his creativity, left me both proud and inspired. These conversations weren't just about art. They were lessons in independence, leadership, and self-expression. By mid-afternoon, we headed to a local community center, where Logan was scheduled to meet other participants for the collaborative project. I walked beside him, silently encouraging him while allowing him to lead the interaction. It was empowering to see him engage confidently, sharing ideas, offering insights, and listening to others with respect and curiosity. The young adults he worked with responded positively, and I noticed how his confidence sparked inspiration in them as well. During a break, Logan turned to me with a bright smile. "Mom, I think this group is going to be amazing," he said. "I feel like I belong here." I nodded, a sense of relief and pride washing over me. "You do, Logan. You've earned every place you take in this world because of who you are, not because of anyone else's approval." His eyes reflected gratitude, but also determination. He had internalized not only the lessons of resilience, but also the principle that his value was inherent, not contingent on external validation. The afternoon continued with a flurry of planning, discussions, and creative exercises. I observed Logan leading portions of the workshop, offering guidance to his peers while balancing his own contributions. His ability to balance leadership with collaboration was striking. I realized that the skills we had cultivated over years of effort, patience, empathy, communication, and resilience, were now fully integrated into the young man he had become. After the workshop, we walked through a nearby park, taking in the sights and sounds of a spring afternoon. Logan reflected on the day's experiences, discussing ideas for his next personal project, and the ways he could integrate techniques he had observed. I listened quietly, impressed by his ability to synthesize input from others while maintaining the authenticity of his own vision. As we returned home, Logan asked if we could plan a small showcase for friends and family to celebrate the progress he had made. I agreed enthusiastically, recognizing that this was more than an exhibition. It was a symbol of growth, resilience, and the achievements that came from years of dedication. Together, we began brainstorming ideas, setting timelines, and discussing logistics. Each detail was an opportunity to celebrate not just talent, but the perseverance and commitment that had brought us here. That evening, after dinner, Logan and I sat together in the living room reviewing his portfolio. He spoke about each piece, explaining the inspiration, challenges, and techniques involved. I was amazed at his depth of insight, the clarity of his reflections, and the pride he took in his work. These moments were quiet but profoundly significant. They represented the culmination of years of consistent effort, patience, and love. Later, I checked in on Logan as he prepared for bed, noting the calm confidence that had become his hallmark. "You've come so far," I whispered. "I'm proud of you every single day." He smiled, a mixture of humility and self-assurance, and said, "Thanks, Mom. I couldn't have done it without you." I felt a surge of emotion, not sadness but deep, fulfilling pride. We had both grown together, navigating obstacles and building a life that was resilient, meaningful, and unshakable. As I turned off the lights and closed the door, I reflected on the path we had traveled. From the early days of uncertainty, struggle, and judgment, we had emerged stronger, wiser, and more capable than ever. Logan's success was proof that love, dedication, and resilience could overcome adversity, and our bond was the foundation that made it possible. I knew with certainty that whatever the future held, we would face it together, confident, prepared, and unstoppable. Enjoying the story? Subscribe for more. Where are you listening from? Comment below. The next morning, Logan awoke with the same quiet determination I had grown accustomed to seeing. He was already reviewing notes for a new art competition he had been invited to enter. I watched him, quietly admiring the focus in his eyes, the way his fingers moved effortlessly across the tablet, translating ideas into precise, compelling visuals. Every detail revealed the depth of his creativity and the patience he had cultivated over the years. We spent the morning organizing his submissions, selecting pieces that demonstrated not only skill but also originality and thoughtfulness. Logan carefully explained why each piece was meaningful to him, and I listened with awe. His explanations were articulate, full of insight, and filled with an understanding that came from lived experience. I realized once again how far we had come, from uncertain, fragile beginnings to a young man capable of expressing both vision and emotion with confidence. After our work was complete, we decided to take a short walk through the city streets. The air was crisp, filled with the faint aroma of blooming flowers and freshly baked bread from nearby cafes. Logan shared his excitement about upcoming opportunities, discussing potential collaborations, and the ways he hoped to expand his artistic reach. I encouraged him, gently guiding him to consider both the practical and creative aspects of his plans. As we paused at a small park fountain, Logan reflected on the journey that had brought him here. "Mom," he said quietly, "I can't believe how far we've come." I smiled and took his hand. "Neither can I," I replied. "But every step we took, every challenge we faced, has brought us exactly to this moment." He looked at me, eyes full of gratitude, and I felt the warmth of connection that had carried us through every difficulty. Later that day, Logan received a phone call from the coordinator of the regional art showcase. They expressed enthusiasm for his work and invited him to present a live demonstration during the opening night. Logan's eyes lit up with excitement, and I could sense both pride and nervous anticipation in his voice. I reassured him, reminding him that he had already overcome far greater challenges, and that this opportunity was simply another step in his ongoing journey. The following week was filled with preparations. Logan practiced his presentation, refined his portfolio, and rehearsed his explanations for each piece. I remained beside him, offering advice only when requested, allowing him to take full ownership of the work and the narrative he would present. Watching him grow more confident with each passing day, I felt a deep sense of fulfillment. This was the culmination of years of shared effort, patience, and unwavering support. On the evening of the showcase, the gallery was bustling with anticipation. Logan navigated the room with assurance, greeting visitors, answering questions, and demonstrating his creative process with clarity and enthusiasm. I stood nearby, quietly observing, proud of the young man he had become. His presence commanded attention not because of anyone else's validation, but because of the authenticity, skill, and passion he radiated naturally. After the event concluded, Logan and I walked home in the quiet of the evening. He was reflective, speaking about what he had learned from the interactions and the feedback he had received. I listened attentively, impressed by his ability to synthesize input while remaining true to his own vision. The experience was more than a professional milestone. It was a demonstration of his independence, confidence, and maturity. That night, as Logan prepared for bed, I lingered outside his room, watching him organize his notes and sketches. The quiet determination in his actions reminded me of the years we had spent together, the challenges we had faced, and the resilience we had developed. Logan's achievements were a testament not only to his talent, but also to the strength of the bond we had forged, a bond built on love, patience, and unwavering dedication. As I turned off the lights and stepped away, I felt a deep sense of peace. The future remained uncertain, as it always does, but Logan and I were prepared. We had navigated adversity, embraced growth, and cultivated a life that was meaningful, vibrant, and unshakable. Whatever lay ahead, I knew we would meet it together, confident in our strength and grounded in the knowledge that our journey had already proven how resilient and capable we were. Enjoying the story? Subscribe for more. Where are you listening from? Comment below. The next morning brought a quiet calm. Logan was reviewing plans for an upcoming art mentorship program he had been invited to join, designed to help younger artists develop their skills. I watched him work, appreciating the combination of focus, creativity, and care he poured into every detail. His confidence had grown steadily over the years, and now it was evident in every decision he made, every explanation he offered. We spent the morning discussing the structure of the program. Logan had ideas for workshops, demonstrations, and interactive sessions that would engage the students while fostering their individual creativity. I offered suggestions when asked, but I let him take the lead, knowing that this opportunity was another step in cultivating his independence and leadership. After our discussion, we took a short walk through the city streets, enjoying the spring air and the soft hum of daily life around us. Logan reflected on his past experiences, sharing stories from the gallery showcase and the collaborative projects he had recently completed. I listened quietly, feeling the full impact of how far we had come. From the early days of uncertainty and constant struggle to a young man confidently shaping his own path. Returning home, Logan began preparing materials for the mentorship program, organizing his portfolio, creating notes, and refining explanations for exercises he planned to guide. I observed him, quietly amazed at his dedication and professionalism. These moments of preparation were more than practice. They were the building blocks of his future, a demonstration of the skills, patience, and resilience he had cultivated over nearly 2 decades. Later that afternoon, a package arrived at our door containing supplies for the mentorship program. Logan eagerly opened it, examining each item with care and enthusiasm. It was incredible to watch him balance excitement with responsibility, ensuring that each detail would contribute to a positive and educational experience for the students he would guide. As evening approached, Logan and I sat together to discuss logistics and expectations for the first session. He asked questions thoughtfully, considered feedback, and made adjustments to his plans with insight and confidence. Observing him, I realized that the foundation we had built over the years, trust, guidance, and mutual respect, was now fully evident in his independence and leadership. That night, after Logan prepared for bed, I lingered outside his room, reflecting on the remarkable transformation we had experienced. The young man who had once relied on me for every need was now fully capable of guiding, mentoring, and inspiring others. I felt immense pride, not only in Logan's achievements, but in the life we had created together, a life of perseverance, growth, and unconditional support. As I closed the door and settled into my own evening routine, I reflected on the power of patience, dedication, and love. Logan's progress was living proof that challenges do not define potential, and that consistent support, encouragement, and trust can transform obstacles into opportunity. Our journey was ongoing, but the trajectory was clear. We were empowered, capable, and ready to face whatever came next. And in that quiet, reflective moment, I knew that no absence, no judgment, and no doubt from anyone could diminish the life we had built. Logan and I had transformed adversity into strength, challenge into growth, and struggle into a foundation that would sustain us through every next chapter. Enjoying the story? Subscribe for more. Where are you listening from? Comment below. The following morning, sunlight streamed through the living room, and Logan was already at his desk, sketching ideas for a new project that combined his art with community outreach. I sat nearby, sipping my coffee, observing the focus and dedication in his movements. The determination in his eyes reflected the years of growth and resilience we had cultivated together. Each stroke of his pen, each choice of color, was a declaration of his independence and creative vision. We spent the morning reviewing his plans for an upcoming mentorship session, discussing the order of activities, the materials needed, and ways to encourage participation from every student. Logan listened carefully to my suggestions, yet maintained full ownership of the program. His confidence, born from years of consistent guidance and experience, was now fully apparent. I could see him stepping into his own leadership with ease and grace. After organizing the materials, Logan suggested we take a short walk to the nearby park for inspiration. The crisp air and the quiet movement of the city offered a perfect backdrop for reflection. Logan shared his excitement about new techniques he had discovered, projects he hoped to develop, and ideas for collaborating with other artists. His enthusiasm was infectious, yet tempered with thoughtful planning and self-awareness. As we sat on a bench overlooking the park, Logan paused, turning to me with a serious yet hopeful expression. "Mom, I've been thinking," he said, "about how much we've grown. I feel ready for whatever comes next, and I know we'll handle it together." I reached for his hand and squeezed it gently. "You've always been ready, Logan. You just didn't realize it until now. And together, we've built something unshakable." The day moved forward with a sense of purpose. Logan prepared for his first live mentorship session, reviewing notes and rehearsing explanations of each exercise. I observed quietly, providing guidance only when he asked, allowing him full control of his own experience. Each moment of preparation highlighted the growth, maturity, and independence that had become second nature to him. When the students arrived, Logan greeted each one with patience, encouragement, and clarity. He guided them through exercises, shared his insights, and responded thoughtfully to questions. Watching him engage with the students, I felt overwhelming pride. He had taken all the lessons, experiences, and challenges from his life and transformed them into tools to help others grow. He was not simply surviving or adapting. He was inspiring. After the session concluded, Logan and I walked home together. The day's achievements were evident in his relaxed but radiant expression. He spoke about what he had learned, the reactions of the students, and ideas for improving future sessions. I listened with admiration, noting the careful balance of confidence, creativity, and empathy he exhibited. This balance was the culmination of years of dedication, love, and perseverance. That evening, we sat together reflecting on the journey that had brought us here. Logan shared his hopes for future exhibitions, collaborations, and projects. I encouraged him to continue exploring, learning, and embracing challenges as opportunities for growth. I reminded him that the life we had built was defined not by the absence of struggle, but by how we responded to it, together, with courage and love. As the night settled in, Logan prepared for bed, reviewing his notes and organizing his workspace. I paused outside his door, taking a moment to reflect on the strength, resilience, and joy that now defined our lives. We had faced hardship, judgment, and abandonment, yet each obstacle had strengthened us. Logan was thriving, confident, and independent, and I was proud of the life we had cultivated side by side. Finally, as I turned off the lights and closed the door, I felt a profound sense of completion. Our journey had been long, full of trials and triumphs, yet it had led to a life rich with love, purpose, and unshakable strength. Logan and I were ready for every next chapter, every new challenge, and every opportunity to grow. Together, we had built a life defined not by absence or doubt, but by resilience, hope, and unwavering love. And that life, our life, was unstoppable. Thank you so much for watching this story. If you enjoyed it, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories. I want to hear from you. Where are you watching this from? Comment below and let me know. Share your thoughts, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of our future stories. Thank you again for supporting, and I'll see you in the next story.